Mick Jagger sat backstage, and what he witnessed that night would never leave him. When David Bowie returned from the stage, or whoever he was by then, his eyes were empty. All of Hammersmith Odeon was applauding wildly, 5,000 people chanting Ziggy, Ziggy. But the man who entered the dressing room was silent, unnaturally silent. Jagger stood up, extended his hand to congratulate him, but Bowie looked at him as if he couldn't see him. "Ziggy's dead," Bowie whispered, "and I died with him." Jagger never forgot that night because in that moment he understood. Behind the stage lights, a man had lost himself. And the strangest part? The rest of the world thought it was just a performance. But those backstage knew the truth. The death of Ziggy Stardust wasn't David Bowie's rebirth attempt. It was an escape from death itself. Before we continue, if you're intrigued by the darker, hidden chapters of rock history, hit that subscribe button. Because what happened to David Bowie and Ziggy Stardust is just one of many stories we uncover on this channel. It all started 18 months before. January 1972. London was cold and grey, but inside Trident Studios something was heating up, something dangerous. David Bowie was 24 years old and recording his 5th studio album. But this time something different was happening. When producer Ken Scott arrived at the studio on the first day, he saw that Bowie's hair had been dyed orange. Not just orange, a shocking orange that bordered on fire red. "I'm trying something new," Bowie had said, but there was a brightness in his eyes that Scott had never seen before. It was as if Bowie was no longer Bowie, as if someone else was speaking. In those days, rock music was dying in London. The Beatles had broken up, the Rolling Stones had fled to America, the hippie movement had faded. People were searching for something, a new sound, a new vision, a new hero, and David Bowie was going to give them one. But nobody knew what the price of that hero would be. This character he called Ziggy Stardust had started as just stage costume. Red hair, sequined outfits, platform boots, androgynous makeup, the story of an alien rock star. In 5 years the world would end, and Ziggy would be a messenger bringing humanity its final message. The concept was brilliant, the music even more brilliant, but Bowie was making a mistake, and he would realize it too late. When the album came out in June 1972, the world didn't know what to do at first. Critics were confused, radio stations were hesitant, but then something happened. Top of the Pops, the BBC music show, invited Bowie. June 16, 1972, Thursday night. If you lived through that era, you remember that moment, that figure appearing on television screens. Orange-red hair, blue sequined costume, hands moving as if dancing with Mick Ronson's guitar. Starman was playing, and Bowie did something that froze all of England. He put his arm around Ronson's shoulder, pointing at the camera. In that moment, a man was openly performing queerness on television. A man wearing makeup, blurring gender boundaries, challenging heteronormative society. The next day, every school, every workplace, every home was talking about this performance. Parents were horrified, children were mesmerized, and Ziggy Stardust was born that night. Truly born. Because now Ziggy wasn't just on an album cover. He was alive, breathing, moving, and most importantly, people wanted him. But what happened next wasn't just a success story. In July 1972, Bowie gave an interview. Melody Maker magazine. A journalist named Michael Watts. Watts went to Bowie's home in Haddon Hall, an old, sprawling, strange mansion. His wife Angie was there. Their 3-year-old son Duncan was there. And Bowie was there. But which Bowie? In the interview, Watts asked something. An ordinary question. "So who are you, really?" Bowie's answer would change rock music history. "I'm gay. And always have been, even when I was open to men." Then he corrected himself. Bisexual. Homosexuality had only been legalized in England 5 years earlier. Being openly queer on television was social suicide. For a rock star to say he was bisexual? It was a career-ending move. But Bowie didn't care, because Bowie wasn't making decisions anymore. Ziggy was making decisions. When the interview was published, the world exploded. Conservative groups tried to ban the album. Radio stations refused to play his songs. But something happened. The younger generation, millions of people who felt lost, embraced Ziggy. Because Ziggy gave them something. The courage to be different. The freedom to be yourself. And Bowie. With each passing day he was becoming Ziggy a little more. When the tour started, the real problem began to emerge. Every night a different city. Every night a different stage. Every night thousands of people chanting Ziggy. But when he returned to his hotel room, Bowie looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. Even after removing the makeup, Ziggy was there. In his eyes, in his posture, in his speech. Guitarist Mick Ronson noticed one night. "David," he said backstage, "are you okay?" Bowie looked at him, but the look wasn't familiar. "Who's David?" Bowie said. Ronson thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. By October 1972, Bowie was wearing the Ziggy costume even off stage. He went to restaurants as Ziggy. He attended interviews as Ziggy. Even at home, with Angie and Duncan, Ziggy was there. Angie had found it fun at first. Her husband was so dedicated to his art. But then it became frightening, because David wasn't coming home anymore. Only Ziggy was coming, and Ziggy wasn't a husband. Ziggy wasn't a father. Ziggy was just a performance. Endless, unending, consuming. Then came cocaine. Cocaine wasn't new for rock stars. It had been everywhere since the late 60s, in studios, on stages, in hotels. But for Bowie, cocaine became something else. Cocaine was the way to realize Ziggy. Cocaine was the fuel to remain as Ziggy. Cocaine was the key to forgetting David Jones. By early 1973, Bowie was using grams of cocaine per day. Producer Tony Visconti remembers Bowie coming to the studio during the Aladdin Sane album recording. Eyes wide, hands shaking, sentences half finished. "Are you sleeping?" Visconti asked. "Sleep kills Ziggy," Bowie said. And Visconti understood in that moment. Something was going very wrong. In February 1973, Bowie went to America for his first major tour, Radio City Music Hall, New York. 6,000 people standing and applauding. But backstage, bassist Trevor Bolder noticed something. Bowie was sitting in front of the mirror, for hours, motionless. "What are you doing?" Bolder asked. Bowie didn't answer. He just stared at the mirror, then whispered, "He's watching me." Bolder asked who was watching. "Ziggy," Bowie said. "He's always watching." Bolder thought it was a joke, but the fear in Bowie's eyes was real. By April 1973, everyone around Bowie was worried. His weight was dropping, too much cocaine, too little food. He only ate milk and peppers, nothing else. "That's how Ziggy feeds," he would say. He was sleepless, staying awake for days without sleep. "Ziggy doesn't sleep," he would say. And the most frightening part, his connection with reality was breaking. One day he told his manager Tony DeFries, "When the nights are dark, the shadows speak. They speak in Ziggy's language." DeFries considered calling a psychiatrist, but Bowie refused. "Ziggy doesn't want a doctor," he said. May 1973, returned to London. When Bowie went to Haddon Hall, to his home, Angie had made a decision. "Either David comes back," she said, "or I'm taking Duncan and leaving." Bowie looked at her, and for the first time, a piece of the real David emerged. His eyes teared up. "I don't know how to bring him back," he said. "Ziggy, he's stronger now." Angie hugged him, and Bowie cried. But the next day the tour continued, because shows couldn't be cancelled. Tickets had been sold, fans were waiting, and Ziggy never stopped. June 1973. Things reached a critical point. Boom's doctor said it clearly. "If you continue like this, you'll die within 6 months. Your heart won't take it." Cocaine, sleeplessness, nutritional deficiency. His body was collapsing. But it wasn't really his body that was collapsing. His mind was collapsing. One night, at Trident Studios, producer Ken Scott found Bowie on the bathroom floor. In fetal position, shaking, crying. "What happened?" Scott asked. Bowie couldn't answer. He just murmured repeatedly, "Ziggy won't let go. He won't let go." That night Scott took Bowie home. Angie was waiting at the door. Together they put Bowie to bed, and Angie held her husband's hand and said this, "You have to kill Ziggy, or he'll kill you." Bowie opened his eyes, and for the first time in months, spoke with real clarity. "But if I kill Ziggy, I die too. Who am I without Ziggy?" This question echoed in Bowie's mind for weeks. Who would he be without Ziggy? Just David Jones from Brixton, wanting to be famous but never special enough. Just an ordinary man? Or could he be something else? Another character, another persona, another escape. But first, Ziggy had to go. Because Ziggy was really killing him, not just physically but spiritually too. In early July, Bowie made a decision. It would be the last tour, a final show. And in that show, on stage, in front of the whole world, he would kill Ziggy. But he told no one, not even the band. Because if they knew in advance, maybe they would try to stop him. Maybe they wouldn't understand. Maybe Ziggy would find a way to survive. Hammersmith Odeon, London, July 3, 1973. Hours before the show, Bowie sat in the dressing room. The makeup hadn't been applied yet. The costume hadn't been worn yet. He was looking in the mirror, with his bare face, his real face. And for the first time in a long time, he could see David Jones. A 26-year-old man, tired, broken, but still alive, still salvageable. There was a knock on the door. Guitarist Mick Ronson poked his head in. "Ready?" Bowie nodded. "Yes," he said. "Tonight everything ends." When he walked on stage, Hammersmith Odeon went wild. 5,000 people, standing, screaming, chanting Ziggy, Ziggy. The spotlights hit. The band started. Hang On to Yourself began to play. And Bowie started performing. But this time it was different. This time it was a farewell performance. Every movement, every look, every song, a goodbye. The audience didn't notice. For them this was just another magnificent Ziggy show. But Bowie knew. And the few people watching backstage, Angie, Tony Defries and Mick Jagger, they felt it too. There was something in the air, something final. The concert lasted 2 hours, 5 years, Soul Love, Moonage Daydream, Starman, all the Ziggy stories, all the Ziggy songs. The audience was beside themselves. But when they came to the last song, Rock and Roll Suicide, Bowie stood on stage. The band went silent. The venue went silent. And Bowie leaned into the microphone and said this: "Not only is this the last show of this tour, but it's the last show we'll ever do. Ziggy's last show." For a moment, nobody understood what was happening. Then reality slowly sank in. Ziggy was leaving. Ziggy was dying. And the venue erupted. Some applauded, some cried, some froze in shock. Bowie began singing Rock and Roll Suicide. Time takes a cigarette, puts it in your mouth. The lyrics were more meaningful than ever. "Oh no, love, you're not alone. You're wonderful. Give me your hands." When he reached the final lines, Bowie dropped to his knees. He reached his arms out to the audience and sang the final note, "You're not alone." The venue exploded. Applause, screams, tears. But when Bowie left the stage, he was silent. When he returned to the dressing room, his hands were shaking. He looked in the mirror. The makeup was still there. The costume was still on. But something had changed. Ziggy was starting to leave. Slowly but leaving. The door opened. Mick Jagger walked in. He looked at Bowie, really looked, at David, not at Ziggy. "You did it," Jagger said. "You killed him." Bowie nodded. He was close to tears. "But I died too," he said. "I killed Ziggy, but I died with him." Jagger sat down, next to Bowie. Two rock legends, backstage, sitting quietly. "You know," Jagger said, "I never became Ziggy. But I watched you. I saw how deep you went. And I was scared. I was scared because I thought maybe you couldn't come back." Bowie looked at him. "Maybe I didn't come back," he said. "Maybe what's left is just pieces." That night, when Bowie returned to Haddon Hall, Duncan was asleep. Angie was waiting at the door. Bowie went to his child's room, sat on the edge of the bed, looked at the small face, innocent, peaceful, unknowing. "Your father came back," Bowie whispered. "Maybe you don't know him. Maybe I don't know myself. But I'm here, and I'll try to stay with you." But the truth was, Ziggy was still there. He hadn't completely gone. In the following months, Bowie still felt Ziggy sometimes, in his thoughts, in his dreams, when he looked in the mirror, because Ziggy wasn't just a costume. Ziggy was a part of Bowie. The dark part, the crazy part, the limitless part, and you couldn't completely kill that part. You could only control it. The following weeks and months were very difficult for Bowie. He had killed Ziggy, but what would he replace him with? In August 1973, he returned to the studio. He started recording a cover album called Pin-Ups, 60 songs, old favorites. But this was just a stalling tactic, because the real question was still unanswered. Who was David Bowie without Ziggy? In September 1973, he gave a television interview, The Russell Hardy Show. Hardy asked, "Ziggy's gone, so who's coming now?" Bowie smiled, but it was a tired smile. "I don't know," he said. "Maybe nobody. Maybe just me." But this was lying, because Bowie couldn't just be himself. It was too scary, too ordinary, too real. He needed other characters, other masks, other identities, other escapes, and they would come. Aladdin Sane would come, the crystallized form of cocaine madness. Halloween Jack would come, the survivor living in the dystopian future's junkyard. The Thin White Duke would come, perhaps the most dangerous one, the emotionless, cold aristocrat flirting with fascism. Each one was a piece of Bowie. Each one was Ziggy's legacy. But Ziggy was special, because Ziggy was the first character to truly get lost. And that loss taught Bowie something important: how thin the line between performance and reality was. You go on stage as a persona, but if you're not careful, that persona swallows you. If you wear the mask too long, your face takes the shape of the mask, and one day when you take off the mask, nobody is left underneath. 1974 and 1975 were Bowie's darkest years. Ziggy may have gone, but the problems hadn't. Cocaine use was increasing, not decreasing. During the Diamond Dogs album recording, musicians remembered Boom staying in the studio for days, never going home, living only on cocaine, coffee, and cigarettes. His weight dropped to around 50 kilograms, bones visible over skin. His eyes had sunken, his face had paled, his hands were shaky. When he moved to Los Angeles, in late 1974, things got even worse. Los Angeles in the mid-70s was cocaine heaven, or hell. Boomie settled into a mansion on Doheny Drive and shut himself away. Curtains always closed, mirrors covered, because of paranoia. Because Bowie believed that occultist forces were watching him, wizards were attacking him. He was reading Aleister Crowley's books, drawing Kabbalah diagrams, placing pentagram symbols everywhere in the room. Was it real, or symptoms of cocaine psychosis? The boundaries were blurred. One night, in early 1975, musician Carlos Alomar went to visit Bowie. When he opened the door, Alomar was shocked. Bowie was unrecognizable, extremely thin, eyes wild, hair messy. "Come in," Bowie said, but quietly. "They're listening." Alomar asked who they were. "Them," Bowie said. "The wizards, the occultists, the ones inside my mind." Alomar thought about taking Bowie to the hospital that night, but Bowie refused. "They'll find me there too," he said. "They're everywhere." During this period, Bowie created a new persona, the Thin White Duke. But this wasn't a colorful theatrical character like Ziggy. The Thin White Duke was cold, emotionless, almost robotic. White shirt, black vest, black pants, minimal, harsh, and the most frightening part, the Thin White Duke was the character Bowie had to play the least, because cocaine had already emotionally numbed Bowie. The Thin White Duke was just what emerged on the surface, a reflection of the emptiness that remained inside. In the 2000s, Boom started speaking more openly. His marriage life had found stability. He had married model Iman in 1992, and this marriage was different. Iman loved Bowie not as a persona, but as a human being, as David Jones. And slowly, Bowie began rediscovering that human. In 2002, he gave an interview to Mojo magazine. When the journalist asked about the Ziggy period, Bowie took a deep breath. "Ziggy was real," he said. "I think I need to say that. It wasn't just a stage act. He really existed, and he almost destroyed me." Then he continued, "Now I look back and see that during that period I experienced a psychotic breakdown, mental health problems, cocaine, the pressure of fame, it all combined. And Ziggy was at the center of that chaos. He was the physical manifestation of losing control, of losing connection with yourself." The interviewer asked, "Do you regret it?" Bowie paused. A long silence. Then, "No, I don't regret it. Because Ziggy taught me something. Art has a price. Great art, brave art, boundary-pushing art, all require a price, and I paid that price. I almost paid with my life. But I'm here now. I'm alive, and I'm grateful for that." In another interview in 2004, Bowie recalled the Hammersmith night. "When I walked on stage that night," he said, "I knew I was killing something, but at the same time, I was saving something. Maybe I was saving myself, or at least trying to save what was left of myself." These confessions were important, because Bowie had been silent about this for years. In the late 70s, throughout the 80s, in the 90s, he didn't want to talk about Ziggy. It was too painful, too personal, too dangerous. But as he aged, as he approached his 60s, he started talking, maybe to process that trauma, maybe to warn others, maybe just to record the truth. Because the truth was this: Ziggy Stardust almost killed David Bowie. And if he hadn't made that decision on July 3, 1973, maybe none of us would be talking about David Bowie today. Years later, in 2016, after Bowie died, Mick Jagger told a friend about that night. He never revealed it publicly, but he shared it in his close circle. And that story was this: at Hammersmith, backstage, at that moment when Bowie said, "Ziggy's dead, I died with him," Jagger was truly frightened, because what he saw in Bowie's eyes wasn't a joke. It wasn't performance. It was real loss, a real break. "David died that night," Jagger told his friend. "I mean, Ziggy died, but David died too. And who was left? I don't know. Maybe someone else. Maybe nobody. But the man I saw wasn't the man I knew." Jagger also said this: that night he promised himself he would never go as deep as Bowie did. He would never be buried that deep inside a character. Because one of the reasons the Rolling Stones lasted for years was this: Jagger always kept a distance. There was a wall between performance and reality. But Bowie had demolished that wall, and had almost been buried under the rubble. Lou Reed had said similar things. Reed and Bowie were close friends. Reed had supported him during Bowie's pre- and post-Ziggy periods. But Reed once said in an interview, David was killing himself, slowly but certainly. Ziggy was eating him, and the scary part was, David knew it but couldn't stop it, because Ziggy was also the thing that made him successful, the thing that made him famous, that made him special. So how do you give that up? How do you kill the source of your own success? Reed's answer, you have to be very brave, or very desperate. The 1976 escape to Berlin was Boom's second major rescue operation. He had killed Ziggy, but the problems hadn't ended. The Thin White Duke, cocaine, paranoia, all continued. After the Nazi salute scandal, at Victoria Station in May 1976, Booms understood he couldn't stay in England. He couldn't stay in America. He needed to go somewhere else, somewhere far, cold, anonymous. Berlin was perfect. Cold War Berlin, in the shadow of the wall, a city torn between East and West. It perfectly matched Boom's state of mind at that moment. Divided, lost, trying to redefine itself. He moved into the apartment at Hauptstrasse 155 with Iggy Pop, two destroyed men trying to heal each other. Every morning they would get on bicycles and ride around the city. They would have breakfast at Turkish restaurants, visit museums, go to Hansa studios and make music. And slowly, very slowly, Booms was cleaning up. Cocaine use was decreasing. He was starting to eat. He was sleeping. Real sleep, not cocaine crash. And most importantly, the music was changing. The Low album in early 1977 was perhaps Boom's most honest album. Instrumental pieces, minimal lyrics, Brian Eno's electronic soundscapes. This wasn't Ziggy's showy rock. This was bare, raw, painful music. As he sang in Sound and Vision, don't you wonder sometimes about sound and vision? Do you wonder sometimes about sound and vision? Boom wondered, because for years he had only chased vision, Ziggy's vision, the Duke's vision, the character's vision. But sound, real sound, David Jones's voice, he had lost it. And in Berlin, in the silence, in the cold, he was trying to find it again. The Heroes album came the same year. And that iconic song, Heroes, carried meaning for Bowie, because the song was actually about two lovers kissing by the wall. But for Bowie it had a deeper meaning. Heroism was only possible for one day. We can be heroes, just for one day. We can be heroes for just one day. You don't have to be every day. You don't have to be Ziggy every day. Just one day. One moment is enough. Then you can pull back. You can be human. Weak, flawed, real human. After Berlin, throughout the 80s, Boom continued creating characters. But the difference was this. He wasn't getting lost in them anymore. He was keeping a distance. During the Let's Dance period, 1983, Boom created a new image. Elegant, colorful, pop. But this time, when the show ended, he returned home as David. Costumes went in the closet. Makeup was removed. And David Jones remained with his wife, his son, his ordinary life. The price of Ziggy had taught him this lesson. Characters are tools, not goals. You use them. They don't use you. In the 90s, Boom became even calmer. His marriage to Emma in 1992 was a turning point. Aman said in an interview, "When I met David, the first thing I asked him was, 'What's your name?' And he said, 'David, just David.' And I said, 'David Bowie?' He laughed and said, 'No, David Jones. Boone is a stage name.' That moment I understood that he could make that distinction, and that was important to me." Aman didn't love Bowie as a persona. She loved the man, the real man. And this gave Bowie something, a safe harbor, a place where he could be real, a relationship where he didn't have to take refuge in characters. In the 2000s, Bowie slowed down. Fewer albums, fewer tours, fewer performances. Some saw this as a retreat. But the truth was different. Boone finally felt comfortable. He had nothing to prove, nothing to hide, no character he had to be. He could just be David, artist, father, husband, human. And that was enough. When doctors diagnosed liver cancer in summer 2014, Boom made a decision. He would make one last album. And this album would be different. A farewell, a summary, a closure. But nobody would know. The illness would be kept secret. Because Boom wanted to control even his final performance. How he would be remembered. How he would go. What image he would leave. It was all planned. The album was dark, mysterious, full of coded messages. The lyrics of Lazarus. "Look up here. I'm in heaven. I've got scars that can't be seen. Look up here. I'm in heaven. I have scars that can't be seen." When recording this song, Boom was in pain. Cancer was consuming his body. But he never complained. Producer Tony Visconti remembers. David came to the studio every day. Weak, tired, but determined. "We have to finish. he would say. It has to be perfect, because he knew this would be the last. The Blackstar video shoot was also symbolic. Bowie's eyes bandaged, on a bed, trembling. This wasn't just a video. This was real. Bowie was dying, and the world was watching, but nobody knew. Director Johan Renck later said, "David told me, this is my funeral. I want to make it a work of art." And we did. But even then, I didn't fully understand what he meant. I found out 2 days later, January 10, 2016, Sunday morning. The world woke up and the news spread everywhere. David Bowie died, at 69 years old, at his home, with his family, after an 18-month silent battle with cancer. The world was shocked. But then people listened to Blackstar again, watched the videos again, and understood. Bowie had planned everything. His final album was a farewell letter. Every song, every video, every symbol, all about death, but a beautiful, artistic, controlled death. Bowie was an artist to the end. He was performing to the end. But this time the performance wasn't to hide behind characters, it was to express truth. Today, when we talk about David Bowie, we usually remember Ziggy Stardust. Red hair, sequined costumes, that revolutionary moment, a man redefining gender, identity, art. And that's true. Ziggy changed rock music history, inspired the queer movement, showed millions of people that being different was courage. But that's not the full story of Ziggy. The full story is a tragic and triumphant journey of a man who got lost inside his own creation, almost died, and finally escaped. Ziggy Stardust showed the power of art, the power to transform people, change society, break boundaries, but he also showed the danger of art, the danger of losing yourself, cutting connection with reality, dying inside characters. Bowie experienced both, and survived, hard, painful, but finally succeeded. He killed Ziggy, and saved himself. The choice he made on stage at Hammersmith on July 3, 1973, was perhaps the bravest choice of his career. Because continuing Ziggy would have been easier. Fans wanted it, money was coming, fame was growing. But Bowie knew that if he continued, there would be no return. Ziggy would completely swallow him, and David Jones would be lost forever. That's why he stopped. That's why he went on stage and said this is the end, and that's why he survived. When Mick Jagger sat backstage and heard the words "Ziggy's dead, I died with him," what he witnessed wasn't just the end of a character. He was witnessing a man's rebirth. Painful, uncertain, frightening rebirth. But real rebirth. Because after that night, Bowie changed. He became more careful, more conscious. He still created characters. Aladdin Sane, Halloween Jack, the Thin White Duke, and more. But he was no longer their prisoner. He used them, but they didn't use him. Perhaps the greatest lesson of Ziggy Stardust is this. We all play characters. At work, in family, on social media. We wear masks, play roles, become the person others expect us to be. And sometimes those masks don't come off. Sometimes those roles become real. And one day we look in the mirror and see a stranger. David Bowie experienced this under stage lights, in front of millions. But fundamentally, his struggle is universal. The struggle of identity. The struggle of authenticity. The struggle to succeed without losing your real self. Bowie's life teaches us this. Characters can be beautiful. Characters can be fun. Characters can be empowering. But in the end, you have to be the real you. Masks must come off. Roles must end. And what remains? Flawed, complex, real you. That must be accepted, loved, protected. Because characters can come and go. But you only have one you. And if you lose yourself, no success, no fame, no applause can bring it back. Hammersmith Odeon, July 3, 1973. Ziggy Stardust died that night. But David Bowie survived. And that was perhaps the greatest achievement of his career. Not just musical achievement, but human achievement, survival achievement, self-recovery achievement. And years later, in 2016, when he took his last breath, he died as David Bowie. Not as a character, as a human, father, husband, artist, survivor. And that is perhaps the most beautiful ending of all. If this story taught you anything, maybe let it be this. Create your characters, play your roles, make your art, but never forget who you are. Never get lost inside the mask. Because Ziggy Stardust showed us that while that path may look bright, in the end it only leads to darkness. Real light, real freedom, real triumph, lies in the courage to be yourself. And David Bowie, after that dark journey, finally found that courage.